again, again, and again. This isn't the first time, and maybe this is still a topic that's pretty relevant for us to discuss. As you just saw from that comment, honestly, at first I doubted it, I even underestimated it. Yeah, I underestimated Inojin, but at least I have two different ways to break down this response. First of all, maybe every single day until chapter 33 comes out, we'll keep coming across ideas or theories about how this Mamushi invasion will end, right? We've already discussed several specula, even possible methods, and if you look back at some of the assumptions, or more precisely the analysis, I shared a few weeks ago, for some reason I was really optimistic about a scenario where Ida takes advantage of this situation by creating some kind of contest. Yeah, you know what I mean, right? Seeing how the number of Mamushi has reached 1,000, and it's confirmed that it will keep growing, there's a huge opening that can be exploited. Instead of Ida or daemon wasting energy fighting an ever-growing number of them, it might be more interesting to use the Mamushi's stupidity to give them a chance to get Ida. But of course, they'd have to compete against each other until only one Mamushi is left to claim Ida. In other words, if that proves true, the Mamushi will fight each other until only one remains, and the one who survives until the end is the winner. And yeah, that's at least a pretty interesting analysis so far, but if we go to the original context, especially the response suggesting that it's not Daemon, not Himawari, and not even Boruto, but Inojin, who will end this invasion by defeating Mamushi, let's start analyzing it. Whether it makes sense or not, I don't consider this a joke. Yeah, that's just how it is. So yeah, if we look at this comment that Inojin Yamanaka will be the one to defeat Mamushi, it's actually not just a wild assumption or a joke like I just said. In fact, if we dig deeper, there are several strong reasons why this can be considered valid, even intriguing. First, Inojin is a character who's often underrated. Amid the dominance of characters like Boruto, Sarada, Kawaki, and even Daemon, Inojin takes a different path, more tactical and support-oriented, and that's exactly where his strength lies. Mamushi isn't your typical brute force enemy or anything like that. Yeah, you know what I mean, right? They are a collective entity with an information sharing system, and that's at least based on Amado's previous analysis of Mamushi, meaning facing them with raw power alone isn't necessarily effective. And broadly speaking, this still relates to the first theory about exploiting Mamushi's stupidity. But of course, this is where Inojin's potential starts to shine. With a combination of techniques from the Yamanaka clan and Sai's painting abilities, he has a highly flexible toolkit. Techniques like mind transfer open up the possibility of disrupting the Mamushi's communication system from within, or even taking control of them. Imagine if just one Mamushi were successfully hacked by Inojin, the effect could ripple through their entire network. Or perhaps, as I just mentioned, what if, to support my theory about making the Mamushi compete against each other or fight one another over a single Ida, Inojin takes the initiative to provoke them if they refuse? Yeah, you know what I mean, right? But let's get to the point first. Second, in chaotic situations like the Mamushi invasion, a non-conventional approach actually has a better chance of succeeding. While other characters focus on physical destruction, Inojin could become the key player who attacks their system. It's not about who's the strongest, but who's the most suitable for the situation. And finally, we also can't ignore Inojin's own character development. As the story progresses, he's starting to show maturity and strategic thinking. If the writer wants to give him a major spotlight, moments like this are a golden opportunity. So even though it sounds bold, the theory that Inojin will defeat Mamushi isn't impossible. In fact, in many aspects, whether in terms of ability, strategy, or narrative, it's a fairly plausible possibility. But at the very least, the biggest reason why Inojin is relevant enough to defeat Mamushi, even though it's hard to believe, is through the strategic use of Inojin's abilities, which are enough to make us confident, right? But what do you all think at this point? But honestly, it doesn't seem fair if we only look at the positive side. What if we look at it from a more realistic perspective? Now, we're getting into the reality of it. Although that theory sounds interesting, if we really look at the scale of Mamushi's threat and the situation in Boruto chapter 32, especially with several key characters in their worst condition, the likelihood of Inojin being the one to defeat them is very small and perhaps even impossible. First, in terms of scale, Mamushi aren't just one or two, they're 1,000 and counting. They're thousands of entities constantly splitting their bodies and sharing information in real time. Yeah, though we can't deny they're still easily provoked. And even if we look at how Daemon previously destroyed them in large numbers instantly, does that still apply in the next situation? I'm honestly doubtful about this. Meaning, let's say Daemon can't end it all instantly, then it's very hard to imagine Inojin being able to do something even bigger, right? Second, limitations of ability. Inojin's mind transfer technique is indeed intriguing and quite crucial, but it comes with many conditions and risks. And most importantly, there's no guarantee the technique will work on an entity like Mamushi that possesses collective consciousness. Or perhaps simply put, if he tries to provoke them through the consciousness of one Mamushi and it ends in chaos, wouldn't that just make the situation worse? Even if he manages to enter one target, I don't think he can necessarily control the whole group, and I admit this might be hard to imagine. But what do you guys think? Third, regarding stamina and durability. A battle against the Mamushi isn't a quick fight, it's a war of attrition. We've seen how a character like Sarada Uchiha even collapsed from running out of chakra just to handle a portion of them. Yeah, even if that was a personal mistake, or perhaps just a coincidence, because after all, aside from the lack of awareness regarding Sarada's own capacity, some factors Shikamaru overlooked also became an issue. And in short, logically, Inojin, who isn't a frontline type with massive chakra reserves, would struggle to survive in a battle of this scale. Moreover, he needs support and teamwork. Fourth, logically, Inojin's role is better suited as support rather than a finisher. In many crucial moments, he acts as an information liaison, a sensor, or tactical support. And most importantly, in this chapter or the next, I think Ikemoto will position Inojin to focus more on assessing and confirming Mamushi's numbers, not as an executor. This is a clear indication of the story's direction. And generally speaking, even though the idea that Inojin will defeat Mamushi sounds interesting and has some basis, the reality is that the likelihood is very low. He might play a crucial role in the strategy, but not as the one who actually ends it all. Yeah, what do you guys think? And as a final conclusion, I'm not dismissing the idea that Inojin will be the one to defeat Mamushi. Not Boruto, not Himawari, and certainly not Daemon. However, I want you to consider the options. Which of these two scenarios do you think is most relevant for ending this Mamushi invasion? First, if at first I suspected that, given the number of Mamushi has reached 1,000 and is still growing, and that this will only make them even more foolish, then one effective approach isn't to fight them. Instead, offer a deal. One option is to voluntarily hand over Ada to the Mamushi. But of course, out of 1,000 or more, only one can have Ada. At this point, they'll fight and fight until only one remains. Second, if the first option fails and they aren't provoked, at this point, Inojin might be able to take control of one of their minds and provoke them from within. As a result, if any of them remain unprovoked, this method might be effective and work. That way, even if some aren't provoked, I'm very confident that eventually their stupidity will make them easy to deceive and incite. As a result, they'll remain provoked until the situation gets even more chaotic and they fight each other until only one person remains. And once again, what do you guys think? Out of those two options, which one do you think makes the most sense? Yeah, whatever it is, let's chat in the comments. I'm Nim without the E. See you in the next video. Bye-bye. Data bio.